Hola, hola, and welcome to your deep dive. You know how this works.
Always a pleasure.
Today we're heading to Colombia.
Sounds fascinating.
So you sent us this really intriguing article from Infobay.
Oh, yeah. I saw that one.
It's dated March 19th, 2025, and it's all about the fallout after the Colombian Congress rejected President Petro's labor reform.
Yes. Petro's reform. That was a big one.
Huge. Sounds like things are getting a little spicy over there.
Definitely a lot to unpack there.
Our mission today is to really break down this rejection and understand what's going on with these warnings about social unrest that are coming from the CUT.
The Central Unitaria de Trabajadores de Colombia.
Exactly. We'll explore what the reform was all about, why it failed, and what the potential consequences could be.
All drawn directly from your Infobay article, of course.
Absolutely. So consider this your express pass to understanding this whole situation.
Let's dive in.
Okay, so let's start by getting into this failed labor reform. The article makes it crystal clear that the Colombian Congress shot down President Petro's proposal on Tuesday, March 18th, 2025.
Quite a decisive move against the president's agenda.
For sure. And to be even more specific, it was the Senate's 7th Commission that voted against it.
The 7th Commission.
Yeah, the one responsible for labor and social welfare. So they voted 8 against and 6 in favor.
So not even close.
Not at all.
What's really interesting here is the intention behind this reform. The article says it aimed to improve working conditions for Colombian workers by restoring some benefits that had been cut previously.
Right, better working conditions. That sounds like a good thing.
On the surface, it does.
Yeah.
It seems like a positive move for those who are already employed.
You would think so.
Yeah.
But the opposition obviously saw things differently.
They did. The article highlights their argument, which basically boils down to the idea that this reform wasn't going to create new jobs.
And they were worried about the informal employment rate in the country.
Exactly. That's a huge problem in Colombia, and they felt the reform didn't address it.
So this is where the real crux of the issue lies, right?
Absolutely. This is a classic clash of ideologies when it comes to economic policy. The government prioritizing improving conditions for those already employed, while the opposition insists on creating more jobs and formalizing existing ones.
It's a difficult balance to strike.
It is. And the article hints at some of the specifics that the opposition might have found concerning.
Like what?
Well, things that businesses might perceive as obstacles to hiring,
Yeah.
Potential increases in labor costs, more stringent hiring regulations, that sort of thing.
Makes sense. So let's move on to the CUT's reaction, because they definitely didn't take this lying down.
No, they did not. The article points out that they went straight to X, formerly Twitter, to announce that there would be social mobilizations.
Protests.
Yeah, exactly. And they specifically invoked the unrest that happened back in 2019 and 2021.
Which is quite a statement.
It is. They're drawing a direct parallel with some very recent and very significant periods of social upheaval in Colombia.
That sends a pretty strong message about how seriously they're taking this.
Oh, absolutely. This is not just a press release. This is a call to action.
And then there's Fabio Arias, the leader of the CUT. He didn't mince words in an interview with Red Plus Noticias. The article quotes him directly, saying that this rejection leaves them no choice but a social explosion.
Wow, strong words.
He also said they're going to push for a popular consultation.
Which is essentially a referendum.
That's a pretty bold move.
It is. It suggests that they're trying to bypass Congress and appeal directly to the people.
To take the issue into their own hands.
Exactly.
And the article even gives us the key dates for these mobilizations. They're starting on April 9th, 2025, which happens to be the National Day of Memory and Solidarity with Victims of the Armed Conflict.
Oh, wow. That's significant.
And then they'll continue with a major event on May 1st, International Workers' Day.
Of course. Makes sense.
The article calls May 1st the most important, significant, and massive day for the unions.
They're pulling out all the stops.
It seems that way. And on top of that, there are plans for further mobilizations when a new reform text is resubmitted to that same 7th Commission of the Senate.
They're not letting up.
Nope. And they're also watching out for a potential public hearing on the project at the Constitutional Court.
So they're covering all their bases.
Definitely. It's a pretty well thought out strategy.
It is. This isn't just a knee-jerk reaction. They're playing the long game and using every opportunity to push their demands.
And of course, the article doesn't let us forget about the recent history of protests in Colombia. It directly links these new mobilizations to the ones that took place between 2019 and 2021.
Right, the ones that were triggered by the tax reform under President Duque.
Those protests lasted for 2 years because of widespread discontent with socioeconomic policies.
A lot of anger and frustration bubbling beneath the surface.
The article even mentions the clashes between protesters and ES-men, the riot police, and the lasting consequences of those confrontations.
That was a very turbulent time.
It was. And this historical context is crucial for understanding how serious the current situation could become.
Absolutely. It's a reminder of what can happen when social tensions reach a boiling point.
And on that note, the article also brings up the indigenous support for these mobilizations.
Interesting.
They quote Luis Acosta, who is the national coordinator of the Indigenous Guard of a national indigenous organization of Colombia.
The ONIC.
Right? He said, "We will continue in permanent mobilization. This has always been the Colombian people. Another outbreak will begin due to the reforms."
So it's not just the unions who are upset.
Nope. This shows that the potential for protests has broader societal support.
Which makes the situation even more complex.
Agreed. So how has the government responded to all of this?
Well, the article says that President Petro has floated the idea of calling for a popular consultation.
That consulta popular we talked about.
Exactly. He's thinking about using it to try and push through both the labor and health reforms.
Which seems like a direct response to the congressional rejection.
It does. It suggests that he's not willing to back down from his campaign promises.
And the article makes a really important point. It highlights that the failure of this labor reform really underscores the difficulties that the Petro government is facing.
In fulfilling their promises.
Yes, within a very polarized political environment.
It's a tough situation to be in.
To wrap things up, the article also gives us a glimpse into the opposition's viewpoint. It reminds us that their main argument against the reform was that it wouldn't create jobs or address informal employment.
Which is a valid concern.
It is. It's important to understand both sides of the story.
Absolutely. Seeing the reasons behind the opposition's stance gives us a more balanced perspective.
Okay, so let's take a step back and think about what we've learned. What does this all mean?
Well, this InfoBear article paints a very vivid picture of a country at a crossroads.
A country grappling with social and economic challenges and political divisions.
And the planned mobilizations, those are huge. They're scheduled for very significant dates, April 9th and May 1st.
With the potential to escalate things considerably.
Especially considering the historical context of the 2019 to 2021 protests.
Exactly. And then there's Petro's consideration of that popular consultation. It adds another layer of complexity to the situation.
It does. It shows just how determined he is to push his agenda forward.
What really stands out to me is the CET's unwavering stance and how directly they're appealing to the people.
They're mobilizing the masses.
It makes you wonder, how effective can social mobilization really be in influencing policy?
It's a question that has been debated for centuries.
It has. And then there's the question of the long-term impacts of this political deadlock.
What will the consequences be for Colombia's future?
This deep dive, fueled by your InfoBay article, has given us a really fascinating snapshot of a country on the brink of potentially major change.
It's a real-world case study in political action and societal response.
So keep an eye on how these events unfold. It's sure to be an interesting ride.
Absolutely. Until our next deep dive, stay curious and stay informed.